Hi everyone. So I've been playing the Last Lament Crossbow Lich build for the past 2 weeks, thanks to Sowza, and I started Path of Exile 2 as an Essence Drain Lich. Now you can check my YouTube channel for the low budget build that I started on, but I would say I've got 80% of the items for the build. I'm missing some very expensive items such like as a +3 projectile amulet with spirit and some very expensive jewels like a couple of hundred divine each. But I am clearing T15 highly juiced maps, triple towers, triple instilled. In this video, I'm going to discuss how I progressed, how the build works, what's worth getting and what's not at various stages of the build from my experience, various pieces of gear, damage, jewels, rarity, and more. So firstly, what is the build? The build centers around this crossbow, the Last Lament Desolate Crossbow. It's a unique crossbow which has high damage and sacrifices life to avoid reload. And for this reason, you need to be the Lich Ascendancy so that you can take eternal life, which basically means your life doesn't change when you have energy shield. This means the crossbow never consumes life and still avoids reload, which is the essence of the build. Essentially, you have a build which can fire high-powered crossbow rounds, which ordinarily would be balanced by waiting for a reload, but you no longer need to do that, and it constantly fires, right? Like such. Combine this with always being on low life, which is a thing on Lich, since according to the same eternal life node means life won't change. You can take advantage of the many strong extra benefits of low life in 0.3, including points in the Atlas as well as skill gems. So things like, there's a lot of low life things on the tree. There's also, as I mentioned, some of the skill gems, Dire Strike, and so on. So really good build. Another thing in the build is you can move fast. You can negate some or even all penalties for attacking while moving. For example, look at the implicit of that 20% reduced movement speed while moving and other things in the tree, and get some move speed. And you can then use the Requiem skill, which comes free with the crossbow, to deal massive damage. And mine's 1.7 million in the tooltip, but it's much higher when you swap in Rakiatas and all sorts of things I've got. And I've had the tooltip go up to 2.8. But I've recently scaled down my damage, which is still super high, and increased my defenses, and I'll talk about that. But yeah, you can use that for bossing. But just be careful not to get stunned or trigger a flask or charm, or similarly when you are using Requiem, because it'll interrupt, and then there's a timer which starts down the bottom right, and you'll have to wait for it again. But look, starting out, if you have only 10 or 20 divine, I have a video showing you how I started the build. I'll link it in the description. One question I get is, are you able to swap on level like 85, for example? You could try it out as soon as you get the crossbow, but just understand you'll have less damage or defenses or something. So in that case, make sure you stick to a high evasion body armor and a high energy shield helmet, and I think you'll do all right. Keep in mind there are other variants of the early build. I mean, I heard Dead Rabbit has one using the Astramentus amulet, which I just can show you. I just happened to drop one the other day. Now the Astramentus is all about adding attributes, so I haven't checked the build out, but typically if you see a build using Astramentus, it's probably stacking attributes and using these to scale offense, defense, or both. So for people on a really low budget, check that build out. I would say give it a go. But again, see my earlier videos if you want to see what I did in the very beginning. Let's start with the first stage in the build once you've got the Last Lament, which is Constricting Command. Now, this is an important helmet, and I added this next. Make sure, of course, you've got the modifier requires 5 fewer enemies to be surrounded. One of my chat recently bought one with a much lower roll and used 1 divine and got it to 5. There's no guarantees though, but I think it's around 7 divine for this one. But basically, the point is you're always surrounded, because surrounded, the definition is it requires 5 enemies. In other words, 5 less, it requires 0 enemies, and you're always surrounded. But just to note, there's a plot twist around this helmet. Stay tuned later in the video and we'll talk more about it and why I'm not even wearing it at this point in time. So look, I switched over. I wasn't too comfortable with my defenses when I switched over. Initially, I had like 2000 energy shield, which was like pretty bad because I was getting one shot a lot. But then I invested in some high energy shield gloves. I actually crafted them. I was going to talk about that. I've crafted almost all my gear, and I'll hover over it as I go through this game. But everything I craft, from my rings, amulet, chest, helmet, and even other stuff I'm no longer wearing, has been crafted. It costs a bit, but much less than buying it, and it's a lot of fun. After getting Constricting Command, I added some pure ES gloves, and that was a lifesaver. That basically, high ES gloves gave me, like, I think it had 3,000 to 4,000 energy shield. I put some points into it in the tree, which is worth it. And I was having a comfortable build at that time. So I in the beginning, Constricting Command gives you enough damage. Why does it do that? Because you can take all of these parts of the tree here, which are outstanding. Look at this. 100% attack damage while surrounded. And there's all sorts of other benefits, as well as here. There's a 10% move speed somewhere as well. I mean, that is absolutely huge. So this part of the tree and this part of the tree are just amazing. Just to note as well, I had the 4k ES. I was then able to anoint Defiance, which is somewhere over here. I think I had it highlighted before, but basically it takes advantage of low life again, and it gives you 120% increased armor and evasion. So I had 50% plus evasion. The build played well, high damage, decent defenses. Of course, you have Wind Dancer to give you more evasion, and you have Ghost Dance, which basically, when you are hit, restores energy shield based on your evasion. So when you got the evasion energy shield combo, this is a must-have. I've tried without it, and please, yeah, you need it even at this stage of the build. Then I added the expensive gem, I think it's a 27 divine, Rakiata's Flow, which inverts elemental resistances. So just say if your monster is 50% resistant to fire, it will be minus 50. The damage it will take will be, you know, so much better. It is huge. It won't show on the tooltip, but it will be absolutely massive. And just again, a short note, I've had this tooltip beyond 30, but I've recently scaled it down. I didn't put a video at that point. Yes, my damage was higher, but my damage is really high now. There are nodes on the tree I have, just taking a small tangent to talk about them, which won't show up. Things like damage against rare or unique enemies. It's not going to show up until I'm in the presence of a rare. And to be honest, that's the only thing I really find tanky. You keep it on your main damage dealer, whether it's Galvanic Shards or Explosive Shot for clear, and you switch it to Requiem like so when you're real big bosses only, and you don't forget to switch it back. That's happened to me a number of times, and you wonder why you're doing less damage. In terms of your clear shot, now a lot of people using your clear skill, Galvanic Shards. I actually only use Explosive Shot. So Galvanic Shards, Explosive Shot. I find with Explosive Shot, it's just much more comfortable for my playstyle, and it is a playstyle thing. There's no right or wrong. So for me, being able to move around the map without having to face the enemy, and in every direction, you know, things dying around me, that's really important to me, and that's just how I like to play. One thing I like to say is pick the right herald for your skill. So Galvanic Shards is converting 60% physical to lightning. So Herald of Thunder is a really nice complement. And in 0.1, Herald of Thunder was really the only good herald in the game for clear. I don't know if they've buffed Herald of Ash. I haven't read it, but I am now using Herald of Ash. Can I just say, if you are going to use Explosive Shot like me, which I far prefer for everything, then use Herald of Ash. Because Herald of Ash, no, it doesn't scale. It doesn't trigger when you ignite an enemy or use fire, but what it does is, if you overkill, if you kill an enemy with excess damage, it triggers and it starts blowing things up around the screen. And Herald of Thunder was almost never triggering because I did not have enough damage. You might have some extra lightning or convert to lightning, then you can keep Herald of Thunder, but Herald of Ash is the go otherwise. If you're not sure if Herald of Ash or Thunder works, just switch over. It's inexpensive. And if you're using Herald of Ash and you're not seeing fireballs all over the screen, it's not working. You don't have enough damage for the overkill. And just keep Thunder on or do something else in the meanwhile. People have asked me how to get damage, and I want to talk about rings and jewels here. So, you know, I've had questions about having not enough damage. I don't only rely on the tooltip. The tooltip, like, my damage is so much higher than this tooltip can show. I mean, keep in mind, I've got Headhunter. I mean, that just... the tooltip goes up to 40 with Headhunter anyway, and even then you just get crazy buffs. So don't stress about that, but if you're actually not clearing maps, then make sure you check two things. One is your rings. You want flat damage. Let me look at some of my earlier rings. They all have flat damage now, but look at that. I was making sure I also had the attack damage on low life. You can have that suffix. Is that that's a prefix actually? It's a prefix, yeah. And you can have the prefixes of adding fire, lightning, cold, or physical. I found the attack damage on low life is comparable to a high adding X damage to attack, so I wouldn't stress about it anymore actually. Also make sure you have a decent roll on your weapon. Don't ignore it. So I've got seeds at the top 298. That's of 300 physical damage for this weapon. Now, of course, if you can afford it, go for a corrupted one, which gives you like 350. I mean, I've never even looked at them with my budget at the time, but make sure you have those two basics. And then something you must not neglect is your basic jewels. So I'll just open my tree here and show you some of the jewels, right? An example. I mean, the ultimate jewel is 2% move speed plus attack speed, damage with crossbows, attack speed with crossbows. I don't know the price of that. I would say mandatory is 4% attack speed or 4% attack speed with crossbows, 3% in the other speed, and then you must get damage with crossbows increased, and I wouldn't get less than 14. Get that on every jewel. It costs me 3 to 4 to more divines for each jewel, but you need to understand how much they stack and how much better your game will play and your build will play. Do not underestimate the investment in these. That's worth it. Now, the fourth affix being useful, I've got elemental damage. That's a bonus. Let's go through my jewels and have a look as well. They've all got those things. Projectile speed doesn't do too much. Checking Path of Building, what does a lot is projectile damage, and damage against rare or unique enemies is quite good as well. They're valuable as well, but really, you want to stick with, I'll take you through some of the other jewels soon, but you want to stick with, on every jewel, as I said, damage with crossbows. This one's a bit of a different one. Make sure you put your best jewel. I paid 10 divine for this one at the time. Probably could have got it a bit cheaper, but it's got top attack speed on both. And it's got 15% damage with crossbows and pretty low projectile damage, but put into this place here in your ascendancy, it doubles the effect of this jewel. It is a big benefit, so put your best one in there. So that's really it about basic jewels. Later I'm going to go in the video into some of the advanced jewels. Headhunter. I actually chanced this Headhunter. I did divine it for the strength and dex rolls and to make sure it has at least 2 charm slots. I nearly fell off my chair when I chanced it. I would say Headhunter is a huge deal in 0.3. The reasons are you take on modifiers of rares for 60 seconds and there are rares all over the map with great modifiers, but you also have Abyss in every map. And that spawns a lot of rares and they all have some pretty cool modifiers. What I've noticed from Headhunter is defense and offense. So I've noticed you get massive speed, damage, and defenses throughout your playthrough. It is huge and it is a huge benefit. Early in the game, you don't have to play with it. I played with the very cheap Sevron Satchel and you basically throw a life flask in. I actually had a nicely rolled one. I don't even know where it is. Is this it? You get more recovery used on low life. I had that in the stash. That's brilliant. Again, taking advantage of low life. And when you use this, that recovers your energy shield. The next big thing to talk about is Death Articulated Ornate Gauntlets. I don't know the price now, but these are very expensive. Now, I'm embarrassed to say I picked these up at the peak. Probably 170, 180 divine. It's insanity. I just want to explain what these gloves do. It's all about the rage. Can you see they don't lose rage and you get rage? Rage is 1% attack damage. If I can just attack damage per rage. And with taking a few quick spots on the tree that are close by, you get 44 rage. Now, 44% more damage. Please don't confuse it with increased damage. Increased damage is great, but it is nothing compared to more damage. It is a big difference. So these gloves are a big deal. However, Sowza, and I've linked his video in the description, has put out a video recently explaining that he does not think these gloves are worth it and that he bought them for 5 divines. Now, when I was looking at his build, there was 60 and probably still worth it. But I have to say, I think he's right. Now, let me discuss the pros and cons and why they might be right or wrong for you. There is a flask, and you can check out his video in the link. It's cheap, and you can use this flask instead of the gloves to give you the same or better effect. Now, by chance, I dropped this early on and I recognized it, and I told my chat, hey, this is the basically lower cost version of the gloves, and you can see I've got a better roll here with gain 5 rage. So I just kept it in my stash, and I should have investigated it more. I just thought, oh, it can't be that good if no one's using it, but that's because of the inflation of the gloves. So you have to press this flask every 7 seconds, and you end up getting more rage than the 44 up here. And it's a much cheaper cheaper solution. Sowza will detail it in his video. You have to take some things on the tree, of course. The advantage of the flask is it costs little. You get even more damage. Then you get to equip real gloves with not only defenses, but gloves can have flat damage and attack speed. It's a huge bonus. So your build will be much more powerful than with the gloves. But the disadvantage of the flask is you need to press it every 7 seconds and you can't equip another flask. And I'll talk about flasks in a minute as well. And that's, you know, once I've got them, I'm quite happy with them. I think I'll keep them for quality of life. Losing Constricting Command is what I want to talk about now. So I'm wearing a helmet I crafted. Now I had even a better helmet. I mean, I've got helmets. That's a nice one too. I've got better ones that have just full-on resistances without rarity. I'll talk about rarity in a minute. I'm moving towards rarity at my stage in the game. The one thing Sowza said that really resonated with me was that Constricting Command does not fit in the build. And it just never quite sat with me. I have to say though, Sowza's coming from the point of view of having all the equipment when it was cheap. Because he put out the video and then GGG featured it, this build, and then it got really expensive. So I think I'm giving you a balanced perspective as someone who's played it through the game. I think Constricting Command does have a place to get you damage while you're building it up in other ways. However, when you've got enough damage to get rid of it, it is much better. The build plays even better. It's more well-rounded in terms of defense as well. Constricting Command has so many benefits, but by the time you have damage from Rage, from the gloves or the flask, you have enough damage to lose the Constricting Command damage. And that's what I was talking about when I said my tooltip went down dramatically. I mean, I went from 31, 33. It was a big damage loss for me. But really, besides the ego check and instead of killing things in 1 second, it takes 1.2, I got really good benefits in terms of defenses. So what I was able to do, if you lose Constricting Command, means 1, you can put on a high ES helmet, which I've crafted, and you can craft even higher ES, and I have them, but I wanted the rarity and stuff. In that way, you can anoint your amulet with things like Subterfuge Mask, which basically gives you evasion per energy shield on your helmet. Now keep in mind, I did have Kite Runner for damage anointed, but I got rid of it later, and I'll show you how with some jewels. Also, you can get a pure evasion body armor. So prior to this, I had to get an evasion ES body armor. And in Path of Exile 2, it seems you just don't get as much benefit from hybrid gear. You're better off having a separate ES helmet and a separate evasion armor, just for the stats of evasion and ES alone, but also the implicit on this. 20% reduced movement speed from using skills while moving. I went from, like, with a few things on the tree, again, back to 2000 shield, energy shield, because I'd got these gloves. That's the problem. That's another breakpoint, to now 3000 something, and with another duel 4000 something. So we are really cooking in terms of defense. My evasion, let's do a check, 62% with Wind Dancer, and I've got other things going. It's really quite enough almost all the time. I've also got Olroth's Flask, and we'll talk about that towards the end of the video for more defense. Now, in terms of amulet and spirit, one thing worth mentioning is spirit. But I just mentioned I have this amulet. I had a +2 to all projectile skills amulet, which you'll find cheaply. The +3, I crafted myself. I didn't craft it. Most of my gear I crafted from white bases or recombinating other bases. But this I had to buy with a couple of mods. And it just, over time, I got enough money to craft it. I added more things. I used the whittling. But basically, I really like the evasion and the ES on it, as well as the +3 projectile. The resist and the intelligence is just a bonus. I would have preferred like a spirit implicit, and I would prefer to have spirit on it. But spirit, 50 spirit on this amulet, I don't know, but I would guess it could even be in the hundreds of divines for all I know. So for now, that's my end game, one of my end game chase items. I cannot emphasize how powerful spirit is in the game. Why do I want spirit? So you got 50 spirit on your chest. Why do you want spirit here too? I'll show you why. There is a gem, Dire Strike, which gives you 50%, now that's not more, but it's increased and it's still significant, attack damage while on low life, while this is active. So it's not for this skill, it's for your entire build. You can get Dire Strike 2, which costs more spirit reservation, but has 70% increased, and you can have them both at once. I would slot it in somewhere else and get massive damage. But that's not all. I would look at something like Blasphemy, Aura, and run temporal chains in that. And basically what it means is permanently, as you're running around, any enemies within your area, your presence area of effect, or whatever it's called, would be slowed down. Their whole movement attack speed. Basically, your defense and offense would go through the roof. So spirit is just massive. You could run other buffs as well. Heralds, you could chain heralds. There's a certain way to do it with break armor. Now, in terms of flasks and charms, I only recently got these. It's probably the last items I've added. Olroth was good because you get guard when you press it. So guard is not well described. I'm not entirely sure. I've had a look at the wikis. But guard is some sort of defense like a shield, which is applied after your mitigation. In other words, if you've got evasion, it's applied after you evade. So if you've got 62%, if you're evading 62% of attacks or whatever, of certain types of hits, then 38% of the time that they get through, only of that it'll start eating up your guard. Now let me just press the button to show you what I mean. I'm going to press the flask. 1435 guard for 10 seconds. I don't often have to use it. I did before I took off Constricting Command, but you can reload it again. And it gets, you can see the charges. I don't know if you can see her up to where my mouse is, and they go up higher. I mean, it is like probably 12, 13 divine. I don't know how much it is now, so it's not cheap, but it is definitely worth it. But I just want to give you a bit of a tip. If you're going to get Olroth's Act 4 over here, Goddess of Justice, make sure you pick the option. There we go, I've picked it. 30% increased life recovery from flasks if you're using Olroth. This will make it far more effective, and the number you get over here will be much higher. In terms of charms, I only recently acquired these charms. Some of them are expensive. This one's like, I think this is 18 divine or 19 divine. This is a great charm because your energy shield recharge starts when you're frozen. This is great because you get Onslaught, which is 20% skill speed. So your movement, attack, cast speed for 4 seconds when you get slow. But this one is really good, and hence why this is the, I think, 18, 19 divine one. Not only do you get Rarity when you kill a rare unique enemy, but you're possessed by the spirit of Primate. Have a look at it. It's quite complicated in terms of, it's not complicated, but there's quite a lot of things that happen. But I get these little minions running around for me, and you get all sorts of perks. It's really nice. Just keep in mind, you've only got limited number of charges. There I've got one. So it's not going to trigger on every rare and unique. It's going to trigger when it has a charge. Also keep in mind, what's very annoying about this charm is that when you are running Requiem, right, your boss skill, and the charm triggers, because you've killed one, you're using it not for a final boss, or just say there's 2 bosses. One dies, triggers the charm, interrupts Requiem, you've got no Requiem. So it's, just keep that in mind. That's a bit of a gotcha with that. In terms of advanced jewels, I don't have the very, very end game jewels that are hundreds of divines, like the ones that give you passive skills or extra damage, but I do plan to get some of them. I do have some jewels that Sowza recently discussed, and I'm going to go through the 2. So firstly, I have this one over here, which is the Heroic Tragedy Timeless Jewel. Now you just need Varana at the end there. You don't care about the number unless you're going to do something I'm not doing with it and you use some other passives, but you're using it to spec into here. And this jewel converts this from what it was before into Black Scythe Training. You get a lot of ES. So only use this if you've got a high ES helmet and you're scaling ES. Have a go. It might not be worth it, but it's pretty cheap. I had to forgo some damage again. I lost more damage by losing one of my nice jewels like this, which give me damage and attack speed. But for me, it was worth balancing out the build. The second one I want to talk about is the Controlled Metamorphosis Diamond. Now you have to get large ring for this. Be careful, don't get very large or small or medium, whatever the other radiuses are. Try to get a better one than I have in terms of, these things give penalty to your resistances. I just didn't have the funds at the time. What you use this for is to pick up, first and foremost, Kite Runner, which I had anointed on my amulet. I was very offense based, but now I've been able to anoint Subterfuge Mask. So it freed up my amulet. I got Kite Runner, which gives you move speed and just massive projectile speed and damage. And it's a great node. And Chakra of Thought. Since you're never on low mana, because we don't use mana in the build, we can just, in an unlimited mana, fire our weapon, our crossbow. So you get the 15 attack speed. And I didn't initially, Sowza mentioned it, but I have used it recently. I just chose this for the attributes. We're pretty attribute starved. The move speed wasn't bad. So yeah, again, I lost some damage by equipping this jewel. And lastly, I'd like to mention Rarity. Now, Rarity is not something you should try on this build until you have most of the items or the benefits I have at the moment. I'm only just switching to Rarity. You need high damage from jewels, you need rage, whether it's through gloves or the flask, and you need pretty good defenses as well. So I just want to mention I crafted every piece with Rarity in this build from a white base, which I'm pretty happy with. I'm about to craft boots. I did craft 30% speed boots, but I want a 35. I crafted this ring. It costs some money. This is my claim to fame to date. I crafted this today. It's got pretty decent. It's got good rarity. It's got good resists, and it's got pretty decent flat damage as well. This kind of thing. So all I've done so far is you've got it on your charm. You've got it on your. I've got it on my rings and my helmet. I want to put on my boots. But keep in mind with rarity, you are foregoing the benefits that are in other modifiers. Things like damage or defenses or both. So you do not want to go until you're quite comfortable. You will be giving up benefits. One benefit I lost recently was I managed to get it back up. I had to craft my rarity helmet twice because I got an even better one, but it didn't have the chaos res, and my chaos res was just too low. It was at 30, and I was just a bit too vulnerable during rituals, and I hate having to dodge away from all the purple stuff too much. I still do. So I was not comfortable. So just keep in mind that's the kind of complexity that Rarity introduces. But I have noticed I'm on 96 Rarity right now. I believe 97, not including the charm, which will trigger when it has a charge for 15%. So that'll be 113%, probably 112%. And so I do notice a difference. I do notice I'm dropping better loot. It is worth it, but I tried switching earlier and it was not worth, for example, foregoing the flat damage on rings. Definitely not, or some of the ES benefits. What's still left for me to do in the game? I still want to acquire some really nice hundreds of divine jewels, and I really want the spirit on the amulet, and I think this build will absolutely destroy at that point. Let me know if you have any questions and what other kind of videos you want me to make, and I will always value a subscribe and a like. I don't usually ask for one, but I will value it very much. Thank you.